our first orders of business is to establish and elect officers for the CIP committee. And we have 3 officers, the chairman, the vice chairman, and the coordinator. And I reversed the order of 2 and 3 so that we could talk a little bit about the rules of procedure, because that defines who we are, what we do, and what our protocols are. And you will see that in the second paragraph under membership, it talks about the 6 members, the 4 alternates, and on the next page, it talks about, on page 2 at the very top, officers of the CIP. And so one of our first orders of business every year when we start the CIP process is to elect a chairman and a vice chairman. And I usually serve as the coordinator, and I'm happy to continue to do that on behalf of the committee this year. So with that, I'd like to see if there are any nominations for chairman of this wonderful, fine committee that is about ready to start its work. Do we have any volunteers that'd like to come to the... Okay. Russ?
I'll second that.
Russ Simon? Okay. Are there any other nominations for chair at this point? No? Russ has been on the committee for how many years, Russ? It seems like it's been 7 or 8 years. Yeah, and he's been chairman for at least 6 or 7 years. So he's very well versed in the CIP process. He's also been a member of the budget committee, the school board, town council. Were you ever town councilor? Okay, so he comes with facility committee. So he comes to us with a great deal of experience, and he's also has a background in finance and accounting. Is that correct? Yeah. So anyway, I would be more than happy to have Chair Russ Simon be our chair, and with that, I would like to give him an endorsement and thank him for his many years of service.
Well, thank you. Can I get a plaque by the time I die?
You might be one over here if we rummage around enough.
I figured after 15 years, I don't have that little county class.
I got one for Roger here.
Oh, I didn't even know that was a setup one.
I guess we're going to have a ceremonial plaque made up for you when you retire.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't give me an incentive.
Granite monument.
Yeah. Made out of Chinese food or something.
I'll come and visit it then.
Do we need to elect a vice chairman?
We need to vote first.
Oh,
You don't get away that easy, you know.
I thought it was, okay, sorry.
I move by acclamation.
You have a second?
Second.
Oh, okay, sorry, Gary. Okay. All those in favor of electing Russ, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? No, I don't hear any naysayers. So, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like to take over the meeting at this point, I'd be happy to pass over the baton, is it?
Is there anyone who would like to volunteer for vice chairman? I'm calling on you, Sam. Gee, I don't see anybody. Are there nominations for vice chairman?
I was going to nominate Eric. He's like, don't you dare.
I was just going to say, Jane is a veteran member.
Yeah,
of
but
the
you're the
CIP.
primary perp.
Yeah, he's the primary. Okay.
Really? Oh, I know.
Ah. Jane? Who said that? Eric? Okay.
That's good. Very good.
All right. So do we want to have a motion?
I'll be your
on the
backup
floor?
there, cause that'll make you feel better.
I make a motion Ed Bottoman be
Yep.
elected the vice chair.
I don't think we ever done it.
Second.
You don't think we ever, voted on it?
Had a vice chair?
Yes, we did.
Well, we can't even get to 6 members, so.
We're doing very well. Okay. And I'm,
Any other nominations or volunteers? Okay. We have Art Bottoman, abstentions. I thought you'd at least abstain on yourself. Okay, Eric seems to have been unanimously almost elected. Rules of procedure, do you want to cover anything else?
I would, but is everyone all set with my being the coordinator and continuing in that role? I appreciate all the help I get from everyone and from Sue
If you're
Frick
not
and Sue
find another
Jordan.
chair, yeah, absolutely.
And somehow, we always get through this process and go forward with our recommendations. So I look forward to doing the same this year.
Great.
Thank you.
Do you need a vote on that, or?
I don't.
Okay. I'll appoint you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Okay, we're going
You
to go
want
over
to
those.
go?
Just, I quickly made a copy of the rules of procedure, which I believe we updated not last year, but the year before, 2 years ago, Susan tells me. And of course, we had a charter change that year, which changed the time frame for completing the CIP. And I think there might have been some clarity on the membership of the committee. And so I don't really feel that there's anything necessary to change this year after reviewing this, but it talks about the membership of the committee, which we talked about earlier. We do have a couple of alternate members who, they're welcome to attend all the meetings, and they have the same voting rights, and their appointments are also for the same time frame, which is 3 years. And we need to have 4 members present for a quorum, and there's, yes,
Is that 4 members or 4, if there is not a member here, but there is an alternate, does that count for the 4?
Yeah,
there's 6
would-
voting members.
we only have 5 voting members at the moment because we have a vacancy in an at-large.
Okay,
So unless I'm screwing up Robert's Rules of Order, with 5 people, I would tend to think a quorum would be 3.
3, yeah, and I agree with that interpretation.
And that an alternate substituting for a primary member has the voting rights.
Okay, so in this case, that would be Jonathan, or would it be Jane?
No, okay.
Jane.
Tanya,
But if
She is the
Oh, she's the, I'm sorry, she is the town council.
Right.
You're the alternate.
I'm the alternate for town
Okay,
council.
so she's fine.
Mike LaBranch would be the alternate for Roger, and the school is missing somebody.
the reason I asked the question was not to change the quorum, but to ask whether it's voting member or member. Because if an alternate is there in place of a regular, they're a voting member, in which case 4 is probably an adequate number.
For a quorum where there's only 5, I would say a quorum would be 3. Because we only have, if each of the committees has 1 vote, so whether you have a primary or an alternate, they still only have 1 vote on the committee.
Okay.
And since we're missing a member at large,
So quorum is 3 members.
it should
Yes.
be 4 if we had a full committee.
Okay.
So we
But
have,
3 sitting members, be they alternates or not.
No, you keep saying that. This says member, it doesn't say alternate member. If you say voting member, because an alternate is in fact voting, then it's a different animal.
Okay, so
Okay.
would you like to change the text?
to clarify it,
Well, I'm trying to understand what this meant. This
Okay.
said it had to be 3 or 4 full members, not alternates. They aren't counted in the quorum.
voting members, not full members, voting members.
Then it should be voting members in the
Okay,
quorum.
does that make
statement.
sense? And that's right, we can make any changes to these
Okay.
rules.
Actually, it says right there, quorum shall
It says,
4 members, including alternates sitting in the place of members.
where are you reading, Gary?
Under meetings, number item 2, on the rules of procedures.
Mhm. Okay,
Okay, but in the next paragraph,
Under records,
it says 4 members, it doesn't say voting members.
So let's change it to voting members.
Change it to voting, then
That's fine.
It's clear.
an alternate there who has the power to vote comes towards the quorum, which is, I think, what Les,
Yeah.
you were saying.
At the moment, I'm seeing two places, if you want to add voting before members, it's in the next to the last paragraph, page 1, it says a quorum of 4 members. As well as the same for meetings, item 2.
I think that helps to clarify.
The only other thing missing, and I think we've asked the school for this before, but I don't know if they've ever answered, we only have a time requirement from the town charter as to when we have to get this done. And I know last year, the school said by the end of the year or whatever, but since you're now part of this,
Sure.
which in the old days it wasn't, I'd love to have the school board or
Sure.
the school have a statement there after the town that says when is their deliverable.
Sure. Yeah, we tend to fall just behind the town in all budgeting processes, right? As far as meeting with the budget committee and everything, but I can get a clarification on the exact date.
Yeah, just so you have space.
Thank you, Mary, for helping out with that.
Okay, are there any process changes you want to go over?
Not in this not under the rules of procedure.
Okay. We don't have anything about Zoom, but last year we were Zoom. Diane has informed me that our governor has said public meetings should be in person. Right?
That is correct, unless it's an emergency or extenuating circumstance.
Okay. Or a pre-Delta variant, but whatever. Okay. I had a curveball for our support. We wrote a letter last year
We did,
to the town council, to the school board,
we did.
and to the budget committee, making a few points that Diane and I presented to the town council. I have a copy of the letter somewhere. He was so organized. Since not everybody has it, if you'll humor me for a few moments, only because I thought there were a couple of good points. We wrote to the town manager, the Newmarket Town Council, the Budget Committee, and the school board with recommendations from CIP. And without leaving out some of the flowering words, we talked about the town hall facility and recommended that there be some group developed to look at the facilities and decide the best use of facilities before we put $400,000 or $500,000 into this building. Is this going to be the place we want to be? And I'm not looking for an answer, but I'd be looking for somebody to respond to the letters. The second issue we talked about was vehicle leasing and purchasing. And we were told that the town council needed to develop a warrant article for the purpose of allowing the town and its department heads to enter into a lease purchase agreement, which we seemed to enter into anyway, but needed to have some change.
Yeah, and I was looking over, one of the handouts that I left for you is the capital reserve overview, dated July 1st. And it's my understanding that in the first two items under Public Works and Fire, there were indeed two lease agreements that were entered into. One for Public Works, International Dump Truck with plow, a 7-year lease not to exceed $328,000, and the first payment for the first year was $50,783. And if you look at resolutions, 2001, 2022, that represents the lease payment for that dump truck that will be leased in the coming year. And every year, there will be another
Right, but
amount
has the
to
warrant,
pay. I don't know if the warrant, I assume that the warrant passed.
we're sorry,
Okay.
Katana, there's a question for you. Does the board now have the power to enter into lease agreements? And, because that was, I'm not necessarily looking for you to, other than the ball carrier, or between you and Jonathan, I just want to make sure we're legal.
We've been doing it, so I think we did.
Yeah, and I don't know if you took a separate vote on each item in the town council. I think the issue was empowering the town
I
council.
think we did have to vote on the lease agreement, definitely.
Each
Yeah.
year, the
Yeah,
town
we'll have to renew it,
council will
yeah.
have to renew it. So the public works director has to come to the council asking for the funds for the lease.
Yes,
To
yeah.
be withdrawn on a yearly basis, and it's not a level funded amount, it changes every year.
Yeah, and I think what we said was why don't you make a warrant article so that the town council can do it, and if they've chosen not to and they want to take an individual vote, that's fine. I was just looking for a response that says, great idea, but we're not going to do it, or no, or we'll do individual votes.
But if you'd like,
Little natty things. Okay, we'll leave that one floating around, but right now, okay. The last one,
do you want to know what the second one was for? The
Which-
second lease amount was for, I have the information, a pumper engine, 10-year lease not to exceed $625,000 with the down payment due a portion of it. The first payment, $42,000, excuse me, amounts are different. I have $33,749. So that was what the lease payment was. And that's reflected in the two resolutions that came before the council and have already been approved.
okay.
And that's deducted from the balance in the account.
Okay, well, at
Okay.
least we have the town council who voted on it, so that's good.
Well, they're supporting your recommendation.
And for those of you not aware, these are not true leases, municipal leases, they're dollar purchase option leases, so they're effectively a loan, but it avoids the need for the town to float a bond. They can approve the lease payment sort of every year as part of the operating budget, and I think that's where that emanated. The other one was a golden oldie of sharing services between the town and the school, especially on the new communication systems. The reason I bring these up is I'd love to get answers, and I'd love the answer to be that they're working together, and we don't really have one.
There was one more item, Luke, if I remember, and that was the suggestion that the town float a bond issue
For the water tower, yeah.
For water tower and the new roof on the Public Works building and
Right.
so forth.
So the reason I bring this up is because we sent a letter out as part of our package last year. None of the 4 people we sent it to responded. And so as our coordinator, is there a way or is there something I can do to?
I can ask the town manager what actions were taken, if any, and what the status of some of those requests are.
Or as a suggestion,
Or he
could
can
you,
come in and
Okay.
discuss it with you. It's really kind of,
would you
it's a
be willing
policy.
to resend the letter and just
Sure.
mention to all 4 groups that we have a hanging participle and we'd love to see either in discussions.
when you say the 4 groups, you mean the town?
Well, Steve, the town council, the budget committee, and the school board were who we sent it to.
The budget committee just never got past the chair, I guess.
Was it discussed at the budget?
Was not discussed.
Okay. So I will ask Mr. Fournier.
I mean, we don't
first
get paid much money here, so, we should at least cause some problems every once in a while.
For status report. Okay. And I assume he'll be coming into one of our meetings in the
Yeah,
next couple of weeks?
The-
Maybe we could ask the
If you
question
want to
at that-
vote,
at that
or just blame
point.
it on the chairman, I got broad shoulders, I don't have a problem,
Would you
but
redistribute? So-
Yes,
Yeah.
he's already asked me to do that.
if you
yes.
send that out with a reminder that we'd love to get an answer in writing, perhaps, or as
I
part
meant for
of,
this group, so
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
don't have a conflict.
Sure.
maybe before I die, we'll get one.
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I think optimism is good.
Well, I'm already 18 years past my targeted death time, Eric, so it could be any moment, it's, all right. I didn't mean to delay us any further,
Okay.
but I did want to bring up the issue. All right.
So we're up to item 4.
Process, forms, instruction manual, I think we're pretty well the same as last year, right?
Pretty much the same as last year, no Zoom meetings, obviously. We have a short time frame, and our goal is to get something to the town manager by September 15th. And I did do a poll of all the board members, and I have a very fast-track schedule. And I can just give you an idea of what dates we're talking. September 1st for department heads and school presentations, that's coming right up. We may have to have a second meeting depending upon the availability of department heads. I have unfortunately found that we don't have all the forms in yet. I've received 17 as of today. A couple of people, we have a new librarian who hasn't had a chance to quite wrap her arms around our CIP process, but is working on it and is meeting with her trustees, I believe sometime this week, and asked if she could have a postponement until probably the meeting on Thursday. So we'll be looking for that. And also, we've had a lot of staff turnover, recreation. We've lost our assistant recreation director. Amy was on vacation. All of her summer programs are winding down, but she's right out straight, so she said she would get something as soon as she can to the board.
Yeah. Which
And-
brings up another point. For those of you who don't know, after about, 6 years or so, there's now a water park in the recreational area and bathrooms, and I understood a hot dog stand or something like that. So these things actually come true.
It was very impressive. I saw it the other day.
Did you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did a really nice job with it. It's very nice.
Nice. I
And-
went over there myself.
Things actually happen from time to time. And for those of you who remember Greg Marles, who we brought in to kind of coordinate all the premises of the town, both school and town, and to overlook, is no longer with us. And I don't know if that position is being filled or not filled.
Well, there was, it was filled and then is it being refilled? That's the question I would have. There's a gentleman who came in for like 3 months, and then he got a better offer elsewhere, and he left in that position. I didn't think it had been filled. There were a couple of interviews held, I
There is a
think.
worker shortage, as you may have heard, and
Yeah.
it
Oh, yeah.
exists in municipal government as well as.
Certainly in construction, yeah. So anyway, that's, is a
Because
question.
because the building inspector also left, so there's a few holes in the.
Right, you know that Mike Hoffman left.
Yeah, no, I know Mike Hoffman left, and I know Greg Marles, I believe, is now the director of stuff at Riverwoods up in Durham, I believe.
That's correct.
So I know those who want to work have many job offers,
That's true.
So that's one of the reasons we don't have anything from facilities. I did talk to the town manager about it, and he said, as we did last year, put in the same amounts for the same projects and kind of keep them in limbo until we have somebody on board who can help facilitate those projects and get them started and done.
as,
how that stands.
I hope some of this is useful, especially from our new members, to get a little history here. And I want to go over this form just a touch so everybody's sort of comfortable with it. But we spent 6 or 8 years trying to get the town and the school to work together on some utility things, like security systems and telephone systems and computer systems, so there could be some interaction, much less facilities maintenance. And we sort of made progress, and now it's, I think, back in limbo again. But the person who's potentially going to be hired is still overseeing both.
There
Okay.
is somebody that's going to be hired.
Good.
It will be a joint position?
She'll be, as far as I know, it's still gonna be a joint position. The school is supposed to be doing, I almost thought we rehired, but I'm mixing up.
There was
Introduction
someone
to
told me
facility,
that they
so.
did make an offer, and the
I'll have to
person,
double
their
check.
current employer made a better offer, and they decided to stay where they were. And I don't know, that was probably 2 weeks ago I heard that.
Okay. For those of you who are not familiar with this form, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but the balance is currently what's in the capital reserve funds of the town, which totals up to the general fund number. To the best of my knowledge, the only way money gets into the fund is what's voted in our operating budget each year. So this is what we go through as a process here to review all the potential capital projects, to make a recommendation to the town and the school as to what they should put away in capital. And the town historically has put maybe 20 to 30% of the request from their departments and us. But that's how money gets in. The additions are $543,480 was voted on last year as part of the capital contribution in the operating budget. Resolutions are how the town council votes to take money out for a project. And then you have the remaining balance. The water capital reserve and water surplus are all separately funded. They're not part of the town. That comes through your water bills, as a portion of it is capital. We also have, the water and sewer is totally separate from both the town and the school. It's funded through its own revenue stream for charging for water and sewer. And if we do float a bond, then it wouldn't be in the capital reserve. Those projects, the ones we recommended, for example, last year, 4, is instead of keeping it on the capital list forever and never getting a new roof, would be to float a new bond covering these 4 items, and that would be able to take some money out of the capital reserve as well as have a bond to get that done. So those are just the general mechanics. If there's no question that's stupid, I often ask 1,000 of them, so feel free anytime you need a question, but I just wanted our new members to have an idea of the funding side. Schedule?
Yeah, so we did a poll, and I received 6 responses. Okay. And some people responded more than once on one of the dates. So what I came up with for a consensus, and you can look
Is
at my,
that me?
it was
Oh, that's all right.
today was one of the dates that the majority had asked for. Sorry, Gary, I know that caused a time constraint for you. The second meeting we have is coming right up, Wednesday, this Wednesday, September 1st. I'm hoping we can get maybe Public Works and the Water and Sewer Department in to give a presentation. As I said, I got 17 forms. I usually go through all the forms, make sure they're completely filled out and they're correct, and I try to get them out to everyone. I'll do my best to get them out before Wednesday to you.
Yeah, and Katana, for you and anyone else, if you haven't had a chance to look through this, and your eyes may flutter in your head as you do, because there's 400,000 numbers. It is pretty simple when you get to the organization, and if you work in the back of the book first, you'll see there's 52 projects that are identified across all departments in the school. Each one has at least a page or two in here explaining the details. I think Diane sent that out electronically, so if you want to print it out, or if there's extra copies.
This is actually
around.
online, under the capital, under the planning board's website.
Yeah.
The CIP.
One way you read the digest.
I'm
Is it
sorry.
possible to get a printed one?
We can print one off for you, sure. We make up a certain number, and I think this was the last one that we had, but
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to make one available to you, Katie.
The only reason I bring it up is if you have a chance to at least look at the macros in here and the projects. I don't expect there are going to be many. I know that the water park should come off as a project finally, unless Amy's got enhancements she wants to
And the
do.
McAllen Dam. It's
Okay.
another project that was completed this year, it was very successful. We've been working on that and saving funding for probably 12 years, and, that helped to lessen the impact of the bond on the taxpayers, so.
And I was
It
hoping
a
that,
successful project that was completed this year.
and we can ask that question to the department heads as to what has actually been completed off the list. I know
So Diane, to go back to your point about the meeting on the 1st, what time?
4 to 6, I think,
4 to 6,
I'll try to,
4 to 6, and
on Wednesday. And
yeah,
then-
and every meeting, and this is based on information I got, is 4 to 6, and then the very last meeting on the 13th, 4:30 to 6:30. And, these dates are subject to change. If you want to talk about it tonight, how you'd like to modify this subject. Unfortunately, we can't accommodate everybody's schedule, but we appreciate, we're open to changes. And we may need extra meetings depending upon how far we get with our review of the proposals and deliberations.
Eric, I got it done for Wednesday.
Okay.
Things change.
Again, just a touch of history. This process used to take about 6 or 7 months. It used to start in August, end in December, January, depending on who was screaming for warrant articles at the time, and included tours of the facilities. If you haven't done that, it would be interesting to go see the water and sewer and some of the things that they're talking about. We used to do that as well. And that change process with COVID became rather accelerated. So what we're down to now is trying to get this done in a 2-week period, not a 6-month period. The 4 meetings, this is our organizational meeting, which if I shut up, I know we can all leave, so I'll try to do that. The next 2 meetings should be only for department heads to come in, or the town manager, and describe the projects. The last meeting may include some leftover town departments if we haven't covered them all, and then us sitting down at the end of that meeting, unless we choose to make another meeting, but it would have to be right away, to say, what is our recommendation? We'll see what the department heads are asking for. We'll put our recommendation in, and then it will go to the town council and the school board, and we're an advisory position. We have no VIG. We have no money in the game. We just give our opinion, and the town will vote, as I said. I think last year we voted about $1.3 million, and they put in $250,000. So progress is our most important. But that's what should happen this Wednesday, next Monday.
Next Wednesday.
Oh, next
Try
Wednesday,
to space them out a little bit
Yeah.
too. Yeah, the day after tomorrow.
and then the following Monday is to clean up any people we haven't seen and sit and discuss what our opinion and recommendations are.
That's right.
So that's the plan?
Want me to go through them?
Sure.
Again, I'm sorry. Okay, I did send out an email on August 25th. Today, obviously, we know about. Wednesday, September 1st, 4 to 6, Town Hall Auditorium. Meeting 3, Wednesday, September 8th, 4 to 6, same thing, Town Hall Auditorium. Meeting 4, Monday, September 13th, 4:30 to 6:30.
4:30 to 6:30?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Diane, I'm sorry, the 8th was 4 to 6.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm available on the first and the 13th, but not on the 8th. Can you pick the
Yeah, that's fine.
Jonathan? can you put that out quickly? And do you need you have an alternate, Michael
Yeah.
LaBranch.
Mike Booker.
The school doesn't have an alternate. Is that something you might consider doing some recruiting for with your school board?
You can certainly mention it.
You want to draft Mike Kennison again?
I think we had Mike last year.
Retired.
Yeah.
He's retired, yeah. So, I mean, that always helps if you have a backup.
Yeah. I can do all three.
All right.
Thank
First
you.
time for everything.
We,
This is how we work, this is how the
we
planning
know
board
the figure,
works.
we know the figurehead, and
Yeah,
we
yeah.
know where the
I know
real
where
work
it is.
happens.
I know where I sit.
That's great, thanks, Jim.
No, I'm happy to do it.
and the 13th?
No, Eric, you do have a planning board meeting on the 14th. You want to come to that one? No, Eric. It's going to be a big one.
The other reason between now and, well, if you have a chance between now and Wednesday to look at the package, that may speed up, because 90% of it should be the same. I don't think we'll see much more than another handful of projects.
And I need to do a poll of all the department heads to try to get them on board, so
Right.
I'll organize that on my end. I think Roger has something he wants to share with the committee.
I'm not sure that the categories we use to rank the projects
Okay.
are well stated or that we understand them. They are compulsory, meaning it's required by legislation. And it seems to me that if something is compulsory, there should be a drop dead date associated with compulsory. If there is no compulsory date, then it's not compulsory. I mean,
Well, that's
kind
not-
of a simple thing,
Yeah,
but
but
it
it's-
seems like that if we don't know, when it's compulsory by,
I'm not so sure the government
I was gonna
agencies
say,
think of compulsory as date certain. They just say, gee, this school should be accredited. And 708 years later, the school may get accredited, but they still operated for 708 years. So believe me, as a person who's been in the real world, compulsory sort of sounds like it should be done pretty quickly and have a date certain, but I'm not sure it works that way municipally. Anybody
what's the
care to
difference
join in?
between compulsory and urgent then?
It's falling down to you're required by law would be the separation, I would say.
I mean, another example of something that's compulsory, we have the MS4 Stormwater Management Program. EPA has said, we have a permit, and we have to comply with the permit. It's a 5-year permit, and we have to come up with a stormwater management plan within that time frame. We have to start implementing it. And if the town does not implement it, then it's a violation of federal law, and the town can be penalized and fined for not complying with that
But you did put a date
ordinance.
on that, so that's
We
fine.
do have a date, we have a 5-year
It-
date,
that's-
but
so
there's
that's
not, a
fine.
specific project doesn't necessarily indicate you're off the hook.
So I guess a good example might be ADA compliance.
Yeah.
You're required to have a ramp or ADA access to this building.
Yeah.
You may not ever do it, and you may never get in trouble,
That's a good example,
or you may get caught
Okay.
tomorrow.
right?
But it's still compulsory in that it's law, required by law.
Nobody's arguing your question, Roger, we're just
Oh,
arguing
It's a good
what these.
question.
I'm just trying to figure out whether it really means anything.
Other than it's a law, and then if you wanted to say we enforced all laws equally, which doesn't happen,
Okay.
I think that's a great example. The library's been required to have an ADA
And
since it was built, I think.
the McAllen Dam was a good example. We had an order from DES that we had to bring the dam up to a certain standard to meet the 100-year flood. And that's what was driving the $2 million
Yeah.
bond issue that was ultimately approved and then funded.
But like everything else, it's on balance, you know. Great question. I just don't think there's an enforcement
So,
issue.
Similarly, there would be no data associated with it.
No.
No, but I think it's a judgment call on people's part. I mean, these are policy decisions, and that's why we have a public forum. We discuss the pros and cons. We look to the department head to help us assess the urgency, and we, have to discuss what we think is appropriate given the town and what our priorities and needs are.
The ending issue is it affects the tax rate, and it would be just wonderful to be able to say everything that urgent and compulsory would be done in the next 2 or 3 years, and it may increase our tax rate by 150%, which people would get a little annoyed at. It's sort of the way we govern.
Okay. The other topic that there is, Diane spoke to the budget committee, so described the whole program, and then it's to basically support the town master plan and vision.
That's correct.
So, given that, I went and looked at the town master plan, and I thought the community facilities and the town master plan last was updated on community facilities in 2001.
That's correct.
So, how do we handle adherence to the town master plan? Because it seems to me that if we are really following the town master plan, we don't have anything current.
Is the
We
planning board
have-
involved in the master plan?
Absolutely. The community facility, the planning board has had discussions about this, and we were thrilled when Mr. Miles was here, because one of his first tasks, which he accomplished, was to develop a 10-year facility plan for municipal.
Who is this?
Greg Miles.
Oh, Greg Mott.
And he did an excellent job. And if you note those projects that we were talking about, he initiated those based on his plan that he developed. So in discussing this with the planning board, it was felt that a lot of these things are being done by others, and that's one of them. Another example is water and sewer, utilities. The water department, the environmental service department has been working long and hard for the last 10 years at least in putting together reasonable plans, hiring engineers to develop capital improvements plans for water, sewer, and as you know, we've accomplished many of those goals in that time frame. So other departments are doing these things. They're not necessarily being done by the planning board.
Except in the case with respect to buildings, it's a department that hasn't existed for
Right.
3 years.
Well,
With-
and before
with-
that, it was 45 or 100 years, so, let's be
But
realistic about it.
My point being that if it's really important, it seems like that we should be bringing a lot more pressure to bear on both the town council and the town manager to take a role in setting up some sort of plan for buildings.
Well, that's, Roger, all the questions.
I don't know how to rank anything without understanding what the plan is.
Well, I wish I had answers that sounded acceptable to you, but I'm trying to say urgent is a higher priority than compulsory. Both of them can be ignored. but you'd like to do the urgent ones before you do the compulsories. So the ranking is more of a, what do we think, what the departments think is a priority, what the town council thinks. But unfortunately, we don't have the money to do all the projects that are necessary. Greg Morrow's coming in was wonderful. We got this organized. We got the process of CIP down from 6 months of pulling teeth to a few weeks, and organized wonderfully by Diane through the process. And so we feel we do a good job in being able to say, these are the issues facing the town. These are the priorities facing the town. No offense to the school board. The school board sits at this table only because they wanted to use the money. Yeah, and so, but the school board wanted to use town money, so they had to join the CIP process in order to be able to get some of those fees to utilize.
What
Wish it was
Russ is
different.
talking about is Newmarket has a town impact fee program where we provide, developers provide financing to the town in 4 areas: schools, recreation, water, and sewer. And that's to help pay their pro rata share of the costs associated with their developments in increasing demands on public services and
Absolutely.
facilities. And the idea being that the costs that they provide will then be used to pay for those services in the future. So it's a planning tool. And we've had impact fees in Newmarket since 2001. And it is a legal requirement if a community is to have impact fees, that it has to be based on a master plan, which indeed we have, a little bit outdated in places, but we do diligently work on a chapter at a time to keep that as current as we possibly can. But that is one of the requirements under the state law to have an impact fee program. So there's a legal requirement. Newmarket has never been challenged. Some communities in the state have, including the town of Londonderry. So, we're always playing that, we have to be very careful in moving forward with projects that meet the criteria for impact fees, and to use them prudently, and also to use them consistently with the state law. If they're not spent for a period of 6 years, they have to be returned to the developer. And we are also monitoring that, and we have extensive financial management reporting that we keep track of on a monthly basis. The council and the planning board, I think, from time to time gets impact fee reports. So it's a big deal, and it does require, though, that we do have a capital improvements plan and a master plan, and that we follow the laws governing them. It's not free money by any means.
Diane, Russ, just for my own education and just to make sure I'm tracking, Roger, what you said was that there is, that currently in the master plan, the section on facilities has not been updated in quite a long time. And you
In the
had
master plan.
indicated that there have actually been sort of updates and plans for different facilities, but we don't have currently a master updated sort of strategy, but individual departments have been making their own, updates to their own financial
Contributions,
facilities.
that's correct.
So we've got some bits and pieces here and there, but not an overall strategy that has been updated.
And let me,
Can we get a copy of these plans
it's all,
that are being
it's,
done by,
yes, of course. It's all on the town's website, under the planning department website. You can see all the plans we've updated. Most recently, we did last October, we had updated the water resource plan. All-
He's asking something different. He's asking for the plans that.
Okay,
the
you
building
can get
plans
those-
that have been done since 2001.
Building plans?
Well, the plan for community
Okay, you
facilities.
can get that from,
You said it's being done by other groups.
all right, I'm talking about utilities. You can contact the water department, you can contact the sewer department. These are documents that are out
I
there.
know that.
Okay.
I raised the
And they
issue
are
on the
available.
community facilities
Right.
buildings.
Okay, that's a second piece, and I just told you that when Greg Miles was here, there was a plan that was developed. It was a 10-year plan. Some of the counselors, Jonathan, I think you were here, So that is available. It hasn't been implemented in 3 years because we haven't had a facility director.
Could I get a copy?
You'll
of
have to
that?
ask the town manager for that. Yes, you can get a copy. You'll have to ask him for that. I don't have a copy myself. Okay, and as far as water and sewer, all of those are available through the town's environmental services department. But I do want to, in respect to your question, we have a recommendation in our master plan under the planning section. And we have been setting aside $10,000 a year for the last 8 years, so that come 2025, we will be able to do a comprehensive update of the entire master plan. And I've talked to the planning board about it. We had a discussion in our last meeting about that. And that's really not that far off when you start, you're talking about public meetings, you're talking about public input, you're talking about having vision sessions, you're talking about a major undertaking. And these plans are not something that, is done without, having funding and having consulting services to do them.
I'm not trying to be critical, Diane. You're
I'm just-
sounding terribly defensive. All
Because
I'm saying
I'm
is
trying
that-
to explain to you why we have a master plan that goes back for 2001 for certain chapters. And I am trying to defend the work of the planning board and the town planning office in their efforts.
I apologize. I
Okay.
apologize for bringing it up. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure that people understand that it's not something we're just, passing off because we don't want to deal with it. There's a lot of issues facing the town, and Mr. Bodeman can attest to that from our previous discussions. We're talking about rewriting the zoning ordinance, we're talking about housing needs. We've been criticized that we don't have enough affordable housing in Newmarket. So there's a lot of emerging issues that are on the town's plate that have to be addressed. And it's something that we do the best we can with the limited resources that we have.
Well, nor is Diane in a unfortunate position to be able to say, I have everybody's up-to-date reports, I'm responsible for keeping them and giving them to the public. These are within each of the departments or the planning boards or the various places around. So, as best as I can hear your question, they were all good questions, Roger. It's just there's not one. Yep.
Is there any plan to put money aside for the impact fee study that we had discussed last year?
Well, the planning board gave you a recommendation, and it's my understanding that the water and sewer department is doing a system development
Yep.
charge analysis. And I think the decision or the recommendation from the planning board was that we need to look at maybe, pushing that off to the water and sewer department because there's more flexibility. And I don't think there was ever any clear, decisive decision from the planning board or the town council
I
as to
think
whether
s-
we wanted to continue with impact.
Because it
fees
was,
or
I
not.
think, 30 or 40,000 for the study, right? That was, I
Something
think, the
about
rough
that.
number.
Yep.
I just remember Steve saying that,
Yeah.
there was no
30,000.
money in the current budget for it, so I just was wondering if that is something that,
That discussion hasn't, we talked about it last year at our joint meeting, and we'll probably talk about it this year at our joint meeting, but I don't think there's been any policy decision.
but that's not something that would fall under a CIP or the master plan.
It could be. I mean, it could be, we could put together a proposal for updating it, but I got the sense that there was not a clear, decisive decision on whether to move forward with that.
Well, there is a plan to update, and whether you like the answer or not, there is a plan that's been going on, as Diane said. It's gonna take us 15 years to put away the money into the capital fund so that we can pay for an updated town plan in 2025. And it's been funded with $10,000 a year.
Yeah, I get that. The impact fee study, I guess, what just seems like it kind of works in with that whole thing in the sense that that's what, we're collecting these fees, and if we need to update that part of it as well for the master plan to work.
If the town wants to move forward with doing away with impact fees, I don't think a decision's been made. So that means that if we want to be in a position where our impact fee program is legally defensible in the future, that we need to have up-to-date data upon which the decisions are made. And we've been fortunate that no one has come forward and challenged the validity of our current ordinance and the fact that it hasn't been updated. Every time, we've had discussions about coming up with some money to do that, it received a cool reception, let's put it that way.
The good or bad news is I don't think we're any particularly better or worse than any other town who struggles with the same issue of what's the tax base, how are we best going to use it, et cetera. And certainly finally resolving how long did it take to resolve the school building update. I know since I've been here in 2003, it's been discussed in various ways, and we finally got it done after 18 years.
Well, we could add something to the CIP to set money aside for that. I think that's really.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, we
But
could
the
do that.
council still could say we're not gonna spend it, but.
Yeah, I guess it just puts it out there in the, because I feel like we had a lot of discussions about it, and never really went anywhere, so maybe if it's on this list.
Well,
They're happy to put a proposal
I'm
together.
going to slightly disagree with that, only to, the CIP is an advisory board. We're part of a process. And I wish we had, bats and whips and chains, but we don't. We're an advisory council, and the way the law, as I read it, basically says, in order to have this potential pot of gold, you have to have these mechanisms in place in order to be able to create that financial goal. And so I've come to the conclusion that we are a healthy part of the process. We have no power, we're just an advisory board, but the work that we do here tries to get everybody wired at least once a year to say, here are all the capital projects, here are our wants and needs and critical items. Prioritize that and present it in an organized way so people can understand the issues that are facing the town. The fact that we pick off one or two of them, or we get a fire truck this year or 5 police cars next year, and those trade-offs happen. Amy's water park, I know, has been here at least 5 or 6 years, and she's found, I think, 107,000 funding sources for them to be able to put the money together to get it accomplished. It's an unfortunate thing, but we're not a wealthy town, and we can't do all this. I appreciate the process thing. And the reason I bring it up is to say, we wrote a letter last year asking questions. We haven't got an answer to that. I'd love to get the answer, but for us to say, I don't know if we can, by statute, create our own CIP project. But if that's what you want to be able to do, is something the committee does this year, and it's...
Well, it would be the planning
It
department.
I would
sounds
be-
like planning, it sounds like
Okay.
planning, and the planning department puts CIP stuff in.
Yes, I mean, and we would have to take it up at our next meeting, which is coming up on September 14th, and I guess we could put it on the agenda for discussion. I'm happy to put something in.
But that
But,
would be...
the problem is, our deadline is coming upon us very quickly, so
Yeah, well, our next meeting is after the deadline. So
Yeah.
we wouldn't
the
have-
14th is,
Our last CIP meeting is the 13th.
right, you're right.
Well, over the long haul, though,
So-
if we at least put the thing on the agenda, it hopefully...
That's- yeah, that's
all
all I'm
I'm
saying.
About it, 'cause I think the planning board wants to resolve it one way or the other.
The planning board has been,
Talking about it, just goes in circles.
we've been trying we sent a letter 2 years before the last one stating the same thing, and there was no response from that, with all due respect.
Well, I thought the answer was at the last time, there's no money. So I guess I'm saying if we're talking about what money we're spending for the next year, that was an issue. And it wasn't a lot of money, 30, 40 grand, I mean, in the grand scheme of things. But if it's not gonna happen this year, at least we should be thinking about it for next year, so that we're not in this circular impact fee discussion, which I've seen happen for a couple of years. And for apparently many years before that. So it just would be one of the things that we could sort of tie up if we had it at least on the list of things to do, so that it couldn't get brushed aside quite as easily.
And that's the way I look at the CIP.
Right, which I think is a good way to look at it, because I mean, obviously, all this stuff can't get funded, we don't have enough money. But I mean, I'd love to have a list that in 3 or 4 years, they said, okay, we can finally do the study. And if they're redoing the master plan in 2025, it seems like around the same time
We
you
could put
want
a
to.
placeholder in and say, in the event that the town council and the planning board reach some kind of conclusion on continuing the impact fee program here in Newmarket, that there be money set aside for updating the data piece of the map, which also hasn't been updated since 2001, you realize that?
Right, so that's what I'm saying. It seems like with the master plan, you got to sort of, the impact fee is a big
So-
part of the money
I
there.
mean, we
Or
can put
could be.
something together and we can put it in the mix, but it doesn't necessarily mean it has the support of the board behind it or the town council.
Nothing we put out before necessarily does.
If it gets on the board and it doesn't get erased, it's there.
It's a little bit complicated, I think, and I think some people don't understand it at first, what the study is for, and so it's easy to say, we don't need to spend the money, because it's like, if you don't get why you need to do the study to get, to raise the money, or the legal part is a little
You
bit,
have to have a basis for your fees structure.
yes, exactly.
And it has to be legally defensible.
Yeah.
Because if somebody challenges you, you need to have that kind of support
Yeah.
behind you. or
Right,
else you-
and the theory would be, we need to add 100 users to the water system, and we're at capacity, and that next step-up function is gonna cost X dollars, and therefore, that's why we're charging the developer.
Well, and one of the things
for a
too that
portion of
when we talked about this was, the town has changed in obviously 20-something years, and if we need more money for ambulances, for instance, if we have an aging population, that should be in the impact fee structure.
Yeah, totally agree. Absolutely.
I agree with you, Bob.
I'm pro ambulance, just so that it was.
Just-
One of the many 52 constituencies we have from last year, looking for money. Okay, Roger, good question. I just wish we had the power and the resources to say, we can force the issue, we can only make recommendations, and we started doing that a little bit last year, so let's see how this one goes with the planning board. It's one of the reasons we have members here. It's one of the few committees, this and the budget committee, that actually have some oversight of the school and the town at the same time. There are no other committees that have that. The town planning has nothing to do with the school, last I heard. The school has to do with the school. So, anything else for today? It was a good discussion. It's frustrating, but it's a good discussion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, I guess, do we have to vote on adjournment, or is that the proper?
Unless everybody,
Do we vote on it?
well, we say all
I
those
have
in
a
favor.
motion on the table that's been motioned and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Outstanding. I'm trying to go through the paces.